Dallin, thanks so much for jumping on this call with me. You don't know how excited I am because I just want to understand sales. I've had several interviews, one with my cousin, like these are the past like week, 2 weeks. One with my cousin, he's in summer sales. One with my brother-in-law, he's in sales, and now with you. You're in like summer sales specifically. It just intrigues me so much. That's an area that I want to learn more about. And so, yeah, why don't you just tell us a little bit about yourself, kind of growing up, and how you got into sales?
Yeah. So thanks for having me on here. Happy to be here. Talk about some of my experiences and what I've learned. So it's a little bit about me. I'm 24, married, have two kids, both little girls. Moved out to Toledo, Ohio last year to open this franchise up. Been here about a year now. Yeah, it's been a grind, been hard work, but it's been fun. So going back a little bit, growing up, I grew up in Georgia and Kentucky. My dad was a college professor. Had a good life. Weren't rich, weren't poor, just like a typical life, I guess. Good life, loving parents, good faith-filled house. But growing up, I was just fascinated with business and just we'd go to a store, go to a restaurant. I was like, okay, I wonder how much we're paying $10 per person, whatever. There's what 100 people here. I wonder how much they revenue per day and over the year, what their expenses are. I remember on my mission, we sat down at a restaurant and with a senior missionary, and he used to be a CFO of a hospital, and we went through, looked around the restaurants, went through everything, what we expected they revenued, all the expenses, all that stuff, and it was just so fun. I just been fascinated from that from the beginning. Growing up, I did a lot of little business things, like a lot of us
Yep,
hustlers.
yep.
Growing up, a couple different things I tried. I did like lemonade stands at our neighborhood garage sale. Would make like $20. Thought it was pretty cool. Always excited when those came around. Sweet, let's go to the store, get some drinks, and go make some money. um, I did. I liked animals a lot growing up. I made dog biscuits, and I went and sold them to my neighbor. Just went door to door and dropped off flyers. They were like, I got this little cookie cutter of a dog bone, and then looked up a recipe for dog biscuits. Just made them in the oven, cut them
What?
all. They were like, I would sell them. I guess they're kind of expensive, like $10 for like 2 pounds. It was something like that, but it was fun. It was a good experience. And then I tried dog breeding. I bought a lab, and my idea was these labs sell like $200 to $400.
Okay.
If I could have one that had two litters of puppies before my mission, that would make I can make about 2 to 3 thousand per litter. And so I bought a dog. Um, Raised her. Her name is Aggie. My brother bought one so we could breed, and then I guess they did it at the wrong time or something, and she ended up having one puppy. We sold her for like $250, and then she ended up getting pregnant again with one puppy again. We're like, what is going on? We're
Oh
missing
no.
one other. And that puppy she ended up sleeping on it, and it passed away the next day. So it's super sad. So overall, that business probably spent a couple, I don't know, 2,500 total, probably between buying the dog. I don't know, maybe less than that, 1,500, all the food, everything. Made $250, but I learned a little bit.
Wow. Wow,
It
that
was,
so you did lemonade stand, which is kind of traditional.
yeah,
Every kid does
yeah,
lemonade. But making dog biscuits and then dog breeding, like
yeah,
that's a really unique idea. I haven't even heard of I've heard of dog breeding, but like haven't really thought, and then dog biscuits. Did you always have like kind of cool ideas, like crazy ideas that other people where did those ideas come from?
I don't know that I had that many. I mean, lemonade's pretty generic. The dog biscuits, I was looking at my dog and the dog food, and I was like, I wonder if I could make dog food and sell it. And so I researched how dog food is made, and my dad said, you might should try like dog treats or biscuits since they're like higher value for quantity. Like, oh, that's a good idea. So I made some with like chicken bouillon cubes, this flour and this different stuff in the kitchen,
Oh wow.
and then honey, different stuff, and then yeah, I just went and sold some of the neighbors. I made like I don't know, 25, $30 in that.
Yeah. Did they
But it
taste
was
good?
what was that?
Did they taste good?
I guess I didn't taste them,
Well,
but
like
yeah,
did dogs? Like
like
did dogs? Were they like, oh, the dog treat?
hey, they seem to like them. So
Okay. Okay.
then the dog breeding, I can't remember where that idea came from, but I just remember seeing I like dogs. There were a lot for sale, and I was like, these dogs are selling for a couple $100s. If they had 10 puppies, that's a couple $1,000s. I got to make some money in there. I really wish that one of those litters would have worked out, would have had 10 or 12 pups. Too bad it didn't,
Yeah.
but it was a good experience there. But I was always talking to my dad, grandpa, uncles, what kind of business could I do? Business could I do? And one of the thing I had the most success with, I was at my grandparents one time. My uncle Taylor was there. He's like business marketing guy, worked at General Mills, all that stuff. And he said, you know what you got to do? Everybody has VHS tapes of family memories, but nobody has VHS players. You ought to convert those to DVDs for people. He told me that, and I was like, that's actually a really good idea. So I did his first, since it was his idea. He sent me a box of like 12 or 15 of them to Georgia from Minnesota. I converted those. So my dad had bought in a converter a couple like years ago to convert some of ours. So I used that to convert his for $5 a piece. And I mailed it back to him, $60, not much money. But from then went to Walmart, bought a sleeve, like a stack of like 100 DVDs and then 100 sleeves. And then that's pretty much it. And then I had my mom post on Facebook. And so we started having several like neighbors. I did flyers in the neighborhood.
Yeah.
Different relatives, extended family send me all their VHS tapes. I was I think it was I can't remember the numbers exactly. It was roughly like 15 to $20 per tape. If some of them were 2 hours but only had like 15 minutes of content, I would just kind of reduce it accordingly. The biggest order was my grandpa. My grandpa had like all the whole thing.
Yep.
I gave him like a probably too good of a discount, $250, but ended up netting somewhere around $800. But I
Oh
thought
wow.
I was ninth or 10th grade. I thought it was so fun. I had um, like this P&L printed off and just wrote across. Okay, went to Walmart, spent $30 in these DVDs and the cases. And then I had to get labels. Then I printed the name of all of them off and put them on there too. So they looked pretty legit. It was nice. And then, yeah, okay, this order made $50, this one $150, all that kind of stuff. And I was just so fascinated of the idea. Okay, of starting this, have this money come in, invest this into more, do bigger ones, and keep on going from there.
Mm-hmm.
That was my most successful like kid business that I did.
That's really creative. So VA and VHS to DVDs. Like I feel like even today you could potentially some kid out there could do something like that. Maybe not with the newer generation, but especially definitely with maybe the older generation. Maybe
Yeah.
they're
The
still
thing is now I was converting to DVDs, and now businesses are converting DVDs to digital because nobody
yeah.
uses DVDs anymore. It's crazy how things change.
True, because I know my mom still has like 200 VHS, like the rack, and then probably has like 500 DVDs still to this day, and they're just in racks. You know how they had the big racks? Yeah,
Yep.
and you could potentially say, is that like illegal or something to convert it?
So it's funny. A couple people sent me like 20, 15 or 20 family videos and then one movie. And I would try to do the movies, but it would pop up. This thing can't be like duplicated or reproduced for
Oh
anything,
wow.
which technically I could have. If it worked, I would be in the right because it's just converting it from one format to another. But people duplicated that. Obviously, that would be and sold it. That would be in the wrong. So
Sure.
they're all protected.
Sure. Well, I wonder if you can. I wonder. I mean, I think you can, but like the other day, I tried to take a picture of a movie on Amazon and it wouldn't pull up on my camera. The
What?
screen was just like black. You should try it sometime. Watch a movie on Amazon. I'm sure they have it on other things, and I went and I looked it up, and they have like special safeguards when you're watching a movie. You can't take a video of it.
Dude, that's insane.
Isn't that crazy?
That's crazy what they're doing these days.
Yeah, so I don't know if it's like a deal that they have with Apple specifically, or if it's the technology that you just can't take a video or a picture. It was just a picture, and it wouldn't come up.
So you're watching a movie and you paused it and try to take a picture.
Yeah,
And what?
yeah, yeah. So I wonder. It sounds like for you there wasn't any issue on converting it, like as far as the technicalities.
Well, so like the movies, they wouldn't let you convert. The machine just wouldn't do it.
It wouldn't let you.
It wouldn't let you. It would pop
Oh.
up. This video can't be duplicated.
Oh, I thought it was just like a warning message.
No, it legit. There's some, I don't know, VHS is old school, but they still have those security measures in there.
They still knew something was going to come up and take their
Yep.
place. That's interesting. So who, you said you talked with your dad, uncle, grandpa. Was it uncles or just a specific uncle?
It was that one uncle that gave me that idea.
So what were their roles? Were they also entrepreneurs? What what kind of role did they have? How were they
So,
guiding you that way?
so my dad was very like, not to be a bad, not to be a demeaning, like middle class mentality, like work hard, go to school, get a good job. And I was always like, oh, these business ideas. What if I do this or that? I always told dad, I want to graduate college and start a business. He's like, well, you should get a real job first and learn about business, and then maybe you down the road have some money and try something without the risk.
Yeah,
And so that was my upbringing. But I saw other people like doing stuff, having big houses, nice cars. Not that they were actually rich or wealthy, but I was like, there's
sure.
got to be some other way I can do something um, to learn and to make money, stuff like that. But the one thing my dad did, since he was a business professor, this is
Oh,
it. This
really?
is one thing that helped influence me. He interviewed. We grew up in West Georgia, a town called Carrollton. He interviewed 5 different entrepreneurs in West Georgia that were all really successful, and he wrote a book about each of their stories.
Hmm.
And in some of their stories, one of the guys, I can't remember the details, he had a big piece of machinery that he could spit out a certain amount each day. And then he saved up, invested into another piece of machinery, had 2 of them. Then he did it again and had 4 of them. And he worked out like a small office, slept there a lot of the times, and so he built this company up and then kept doing different things. He ended up owning a golf course. He owned a liquor store, a restaurant, just a couple other things around town. And they did really, really well. And I always remember that story. I was like, wow, it'd be so cool. What's the first thing I can do? I can build it up a little bit, take that, get to something bigger, and then something bigger. And then they well diversified, have quite a few things going on. So I've always been really interested in that idea since then. So that's one thing. My dad wrote that book. I didn't read it till like my senior year in high school, but that just reading those stories, what different people did, the risks people took, I thought was pretty cool.
What's the book called?
It's Entrepreneurs of West Georgia. It's nothing fancy. It's just like a straight blue cover, like cheaply published. But he didn't even like sell it. I think he donated them to like high schools to read and study in different business classes, just to like hear people's stories and what they did.
Yeah,
But it was pretty cool, like
that is really cool.
reading through them, seeing what they did.
I feel like that's one of the purposes that I have with sitting down interviewing different entrepreneurs like yourself of like hearing their stories. I know me personally, I really like listening to different um, like stories of how other people started up. And I'm like, what if I did that, but instead of doing dog biscuits, I started up with doing human biscuits or whatever, and you can take that and you can learn from other people. So that's really cool. Your dad wrote a book. I mean, you don't hear that very much, like
Yeah,
your dad writing a book.
nothing fancy. I guess he did write one other one. So in Georgia, we had an early morning seminary.
Okay.
My dad was bishop at the time, so he would drive us there, then drive us to school. So he would have like 45 minutes to an hour every morning, and he just went to the clerk's office and wrote in a Word document. So he was bishop. He dealt with a lot of people with marriage issues and money issues.
Yeah.
So he wrote a book called Marriage and Money. It's on the Kindle. It's free,
Oh,
and
wow.
it's about fictional characters that go through real life issues that he was going through, and just how they figured things out, overcame different things. It's not like super edited, perfect. Like there's some typos and whatnot in there, but it's pretty cool. It's been a while since I've read it, but
Sure.
I just remember being impressed about different things people experienced and what they had to do to overcome or change
Sure.
different things in the West.
So that was your dad. What about your uncle and your grandpa?
So my uncle was more just like bouncing ideas, talking about different stuff, different time. My grandpa, he did a lot of stuff. He owned a commercial real estate, a residential real estate company in northern Utah in
Okay.
like I don't know the 70s or 80s.
Like building houses or
So
property
like
manager
real estate agents like selling
or
houses,
selling
and they
houses?
were like the big dog in Utah at that time.
Really?
And then he had some friends in commercial real estate in Georgia. So he moved out there to learn commercial real estate and then was going to come back to Utah and wanted to dominate all the residential and commercial. He ended up staying out in Utah, no, out in Georgia, I mean, and that's why my family grew up there. He did really well, and then Ronald Reagan changed like some minor tax or something, and it just went to like zero, and then they went to nothing for a while, and then he did like insurance sales, like life insurance, different stuff, and now
What?
he's a mortgage broker.
What the heck? That's a really good lesson of how much I think a lot of people don't realize. You and I have talked about politics before, but a lot of people don't realize how much law affects business and affects family situation, affects religions. Like it just affects life so much. His business literally went to zero.
He was, from what I've heard, he was making over half a million a year back in like the 80s, and then one year zero, nothing.
Do you know what the
It,
law was?
I don't know. I need to ask him. It was
Ronald
something.
Reagan of all people.
Yeah, it was something in the commercial real estate world. I just heard this like bits and pieces of the story to my grandpa and my mom and dad. I need to sit down with my grandpa and ask him what more happened. But yeah, it went to zero. Then my mom was working at McDonald's, and she would get a free Happy Meal every day, and she would bring it home and like split it up between the kids. Like they went from 100 to zero really quick growing up.
Holy crap. That's crazy. Yeah,
And
that's
then
a really good lesson.
one thing my grandpa did when he was working in mortgage, they lived like an hour away, but he would do business in Carrollton, and he would take me out to lunch probably 3 or 4 times. We'd go to this pizza restaurant that was super good and just talk about business, investing, all this different stuff. And I asked him, I was like, what can I be doing to learn more about business for the future? He's like, just keep trying stuff. Just try everything you can. Try and fail, and you will eventually figure something out. So I always love that he said that. I always remember that.
That's
And
really
they live in St. George now, so
okay. That's really good. That's really cool that you got to spend so much time with your grandpa and especially how much knowledge he had. Um, so how did that transition into you going then into summer sales?
yeah. So a little more details from younger. I was always like quieter growing up, like nervous to talk to people, all different kind of stuff now. Now I'm a lot different. And what changed for me on my mission, I went on my LDS mission to Portugal. And I remember contacting one time in a like a plaza, like a what do you call it, a little city place where it's like open, there's little
Yeah,
stores and stuff around.
town
And
square.
my comp was out contacting people. Yeah, that's it. And he was contacting people, and I was standing there, and I was like, well, I'm not just gonna stand here. I might as well start talking to people. And I remember just starting to make contact of contact and contact, just like throwing myself out there. And at the end, I just felt like this power that I'd never felt before in my life. And I was like, wow, like the scripture, the power that isn't known unto men, something along the lines of that. And I was like, wow, this is pretty cool. Just going out in the mission field, applying yourself and everything. And from that moment, I was like, okay, I know I was quiet, but I'm able to contact, I'm able to go out and do things and learn how to do that. And that is before my mission, after my mission, I was just more confident in myself, contacting people, being told no. And then coming back from my mission, I was talking to my dad about what to do. He was a professor, had a pretty good like work-life balance. And I was like, that's actually a pretty good plan. I'll do 4 years at Dixie. I'll go to a PhD program, work really hard for 4 years, then go be a business professor, and I can make between 90 and like 120 a year. And I was like, back then I thought if I made that money, I'm like set. Like that's
Tons of
good to do
money.
whatever.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's what I had thought for a while. And then at Dixie, Utah in general, colleges, summer sales is huge, recruiting is huge. I kept kind of hearing about this, and I had a distant relative I reached out to who I ended up going to sell with, and he kind of broke down the summer to me, and I was like, okay, even if I didn't make that much money, the experience of going out and selling, getting told no every day, falling flat in the face, that's an experience I think could be so good for me in the long run to whatever I do next, regardless if I do it one summer or multiple summers. So I was like, I'm gonna go do it. So I ended up getting married before that summer. Went out there. Our first day out, I guess we started. We had our training and whatnot. We started a Friday evening. The Saturday morning, we pulled up to the apartment complex for a training, and somebody else runs in and says, "Who drives the white Nissan Versa?" And Megan's like, "That's us." And the car had gotten towed, and we're like, "What the crap?" We had hardly any money. We probably had less. We already had like 500 or 600 bucks total, and we weren't making any money yet. And we're like, crap, it's going to be another 100 bucks. And so we ended up getting a ride over there. And it's because it was private and not like public, it ended up being over $300. And we're like, what the heck? We had to pay that. We just had a couple $100 between us total. And we're in a contract for the apartment. It was with utilities about 1,500 a month. And we're like, what the heck are we going to do? That Saturday, I got back out knocking. I was like, okay, I'm going to go get a sale today. I went knocking. Didn't know what I was doing. Didn't get anything again. And neither did Megan. So 2 days, they were both half days out. The Sunday, we're like, what the heck are we doing with our life? Why did we decide to do this? This is not good at all. And then the next day, I went out there. I knocked with somebody. He got a sale for me. And I got two more on myself. And I was like, okay, this is easy now. I figured it out. You just go through this process and get them. And I was like, I got it going. The next day, I got one sale, and I was like, okay, like, I'm getting the hang of this. It's going to be totally fine. The next day, I got zero, and then zero again. And then I had one or two at the end of the week. And next week, it was 0, 0, 0. The last day of those 3 zeros, this was like the lowest low I had that summer. I was like, seriously questioning, what the heck am I doing? I'm making no money. I can't figure this out. It's the hardest thing. I don't understand sales. There was an LDS church right next to that parking lot. I just had Megan drop me off there, and I sat on the steps for about 30 minutes. And I was like borderline just tears. I just needed like a mental break. It was crazy. It's like a mental breakdown. I sat there for about 30 minutes, just breathe, just thought to myself, record a little video myself, just like going through the pitch a little bit. And then I was like, okay, I think I'm reset. And I just went out and started knocking. I don't think I got anything that day, but it was like a reset. I gained a little more confidence. And the
Mm.
next I got something. I didn't do very well that summer, but I was able to like figure it out enough to make okay. I made like $10,000 that summer. I did 74 accounts, which isn't very good for summer sales overall, but it was a really good experience just to like be thrown out in neighborhoods, be yelled at, doors slammed on, have everything going against you, but just like figuring it out and sticking through it. For
Yeah.
me, the more I got into the summer, the whole team pretty much quit. We started with 19 people and ended up with 5 people that finished. And nobody was really good on our team. Everybody couldn't really sell. But I saw people on social media, different companies, different things, people selling a lot, and I'm like, there's got to be something I'm missing. What are these guys doing to get all these like 4 or 5, 6 sales a day, and me getting like 1 or 2 a day? And so it was so intriguing to me. I kept like working on different stuff, but I never really figured it out that summer. And so I ended up like 74 accounts, made about $10,000, and that was our first year of selling.
Oh my gosh. So most people quit. Why didn't you quit? I know you had that reset at the beginning, but why not after the first year? Like $10,000, that isn't that much. For summer sales, you hear some of these guys are like, "Oh, my first year I made 70,000, I made 100,000, I made whatever." Why? What brought you back to summer sales the second year?
So one thing, we had a housing contract that we had to finish that summer, but when it was hard, Megan was like, "Why didn't you go tech and just make a little bit of money?" And I was like, when I realized myself, that at least the first summer getting through, I was like, I don't care if this is a success or not. I don't care about the money. I care about the skill.
Mm,
If I could learn how to sell something door to door, what else could I go and excel at in life? What can I take this knowledge and go apply it to something else and be successful at that? So after that summer, Megan like did not believe in me at all. She did not want to go back out. But I was like, look, I am gonna figure this out. I'm gonna figure out how I can sell and go make it happen next year. I set a goal to do 250 accounts, which would have been around like $60,000 in earnings. I was like, I'm gonna go knock this out of the park. I'm gonna figure it out. So I started looking at what the top people did, like reading books. I just started reading tons of different personal development, business sales, any kind of books. I read around like 20 books, 25 books from the end of that summer to the next summer. Then I switched companies. So I was with Aptive the first year. It went terrible. Everything they said and what they did were two completely different things. I was like, okay, I can't trust them. The service they provide is terrible. Their texts were terrible. I have no faith in that. I have to find a different company. So we had a family friend from Georgia whose brother-in-law sold in Ohio. I ended up reaching out to him. His name's Andrew Osler. He had done 1,000 accounts a couple years before that, was the top rep advantage. So we signed in November. I put a huge spreadsheet together of what I think I needed to learn to be successful the next year. And so it was like, if I could do 20 books, if I could do 10 hours of role playing, just getting these lines, just saying them over and over, washing dishes, I was saying it in the mirror, I was saying it, walking, I was saying it. And then if I could listen to 150 different podcasts, just like sales, mindset, all that kind of stuff, get a couple preseason sales before I went out there. And if I read the manual 10 times and watched every training video four times,
mm.
I wrote these goals out. I was like, I have roughly 6, 7 months to do that. If I could go through all of these things, I would have to have enough skill to go be successful and do 250 counts that summer. So then I just thought about it all the time. There's always on my next summer, I'm gonna learn the skills. I'm gonna figure it out.
So this was the time between your first year and your second year, like
Yeah,
that winter spring time.
this is end of 2019 to beginning of 2020.
Okay. And essentially what you did was you broke it down and you said, here's how I'm putting up this big goal. is 250 accounts, and here's how I'm gonna reach it. I'm gonna do these 5 different things, and you followed through with those things, or how did you do?
Yep. So I hit every one of them. I had to up each of those numbers
Oh, that's awesome.
from like. So I upped each of the numbers 2 or 3 times from like
Really?
$20 to 25. The hours of role playing, I can't remember. It was like, I don't know, 10. Then I did 12 and 15 like that, for pretty much all those things. And then I had an Excel spreadsheet. I just checked them off every day, and I do everything. Had like what I need to do every day, the weekly targets, and then to be on track to hit that before the first door.
That's
So
really
I mapped it out. I was thinking, if I do all these things, I'm gonna have to learn the skill sets. I would have to be good enough to be able to hit this goal after that. It's funny that winter, my brother-in-law was telling me, he's like, dude, you did 74 accounts your first summer. Set a realistic goal. What about 150? You're stretching yourself too far. 250 is not realistic. Do like 150, 160 accounts, and that'll be good.
Was he into
And
sales
he
as
joked
well,
with me.
or what did he?
No, he never did sell. He never did.
That's isn't that
He's
isn't
like,
that
be
interesting?
realistic.
Isn't that interesting? That's kind of typical of like somebody else that's never done what you're doing is trying to tell you how to do
Yep. No, it's very, very typical.
it. That's funny. Okay.
Talk to people that have done it.
Yeah. So he was saying set a lower goal, and then you, what were you saying?
I was like, look, this is the goal I set. I'm going to do whatever it takes to hit it. I'm going to put all this work. And if I do this, I'm confident I'm going to be able to hit this goal, make $60,000. And I was like, if I do that, that would be just so awesome. I would have learned enough of the skill I wanted to learn and then see what I'm going to do next, pretty much. And then that summer, COVID happened that spring. Schools canceled everything. The summer was kind of in limbo. Like, wait, is this even going to happen? But for me, I didn't believe in COVID. I thought it was all fake. Screw up the election. I was like, dude, I'm not going to worry about it at all. We ended up getting out there a little bit earlier in April and started knocking earlier. But we had to it was weird. We had to stay a certain distance from people. We had to wipe the iPad down with Clorox before people signed. We had to stop knocking past 7, which really affected our hours just because people were calling and complaining. After the first couple of days, the office got a letter from the Warren County of Ohio health department saying, you guys can't be doing this during COVID. And then we're like, crap, is this even going to work out? But I had made enough sales before that week just to cover our rent for the month. So we were like, okay, regardless, we should be okay. It should be fine. But anyway, so I did all this training. I had my confidence. I was like, I'm going to get 2 or 3 sales a week, all this good stuff. I go out there, instead of doing 250 and 60,000, I did 353 accounts at a higher contract value than I expected, and I made 100,000 that summer. And then, wow, I did that work, and I made that much money. I kind of couldn't. I was like, I didn't feel like I was that special or anything. I just wrote down the things to do. I did it, and I went out and worked every day, my tail off every single day. Skipped lunches, just had 2 Cliff Bars and 2 fruit snacks every day. I was just dropped off in the neighborhood for 10 hours every day, and I made that amount of money in that amount of time. And I was like, wow, that's pretty cool. It was just a cool feeling of accomplishments from the year before, basically like a failure.
Mm-hmm.
So, okay, I'm going to do this and accomplish it and knocking the goal out of the park. It was a pretty cool experience for me there.
That's really cool. What? That's a huge jump. You 10x'd. Have you read that book? Was that one of the books that was on your list?
I had.
Okay.
I got it.
He's got it. He's got it with him. You literally 10x'd your profit. That's awesome.
Yep.
One of the questions I had was going back. Was Megan, your wife, was she also selling at the same time, or what was she doing out there?
No, good question. So the first summer she sold,
Okay.
we did pretty similar. She started off a lot better. I ended off better, so I ended up making a little bit more money than her. And then the second summer, she was gonna sell, gonna do half and half. She like kind of back and forth, and she ended up not selling and just doing the coordinating, like the office work,
Okay.
the middle person between the sales reps and the technicians. And so her money from coordinating pretty much covered our expenses, and then mine was pretty much profit from there. And so it ended up being really good. Put us in a really good spot.
So one of my questions with that is, um, why didn't she keep on selling? Because she would have made a lot more money selling if she would have done it. I would assume she would make a lot more money. Why didn't she go with it? Was it a fear of knocking on doors? Was it what was it?
If you ask anybody if they like knocking on doors, not many people are going to say yes.
For sure.
And she was kind of just like sick of it.
For
I
sure.
just wanted to do something else. So,
Okay. Because the
and she
reason,
ended up,
yeah.
so we also have, we have two kids. So that time she was pregnant with Addie that
Oh,
summer.
okay.
So then that she wasn't able to sell anyways. So
That
kind of a
was that
combination of
was
those.
the second summer that she was.
That was the second summer.
Okay. That makes a lot
Yep.
more sense. The reason I asked that is because sometimes I feel like a lot of times in a relationship when you're married to somebody, like you might really want to do something and your spouse doesn't, and you guys probably have a lot of the same core values. Um, but going a little bit further, not just looking at people who are married, but just people who do sales. You said 19 people started, 5 people finished your first year. Maybe some of that had to do with Aptive and whatever else. But I know that summer sales specifically has a high attrition rate, meaning people fall off. Why? What do you think the secret is to finishing and continuing in sales? And I guess that leads into why, like, what advice would you give to somebody who's just starting in sales or trying to continue in sales? What advice would you give there?
Yeah. But you have to decide for yourself, regardless of what outside circumstances happen, that I'm going to do it. I'm going to finish it. And that's what I decided to do. Megan didn't not, I mean, she supported me. She did not believe I was going to be successful the next year. I was like, I don't care. Nobody, my parents, my brother, not nobody, everybody's like, what are you doing? Going back out again. I'm like, look,
Wow,
I'm the only person who needs to believe in me. If I believe in me, that's all I need. I'm going to go do
that's
it and I'm
so
going to do just
funny.
fine. And so she was supportive. She was like, look, if you want to do it, I'm not going to stop you. Go do it. I'll be there for you, all that good stuff. But I was like, look, I want to figure it out, and I'm gonna figure out how to do it, and be successful in it.
That's so interesting. What is your
But
grandpa? Is
there's
your
a
grandpa still around?
yeah, yeah,
Did he?
is
What did he say? Did you talk to him? Did he believe in you?
so I talked to him. I called him throughout the summer every little while. I was kind of giving him updates. He was always so excited for me. Like, dude, that's all. I was telling him my numbers from the previous year. I would do like 7 or 8 a week. My first week in Ohio was better than my best week in Texas. I was like, sweet, my training's paying off. Like everything's gonna be good going through. I would, I guess. So I guess saying nobody believed in me was inaccurate. But he believed in me. He was excited. He was
That's
like,
cool.
keep going, keep knocking it out, keep doing it.
That's crazy.
It was fun to I could relate with him better than I could relate with my parents or anybody in my family because he had like he didn't do door to door, but being just in like the real estate, insurance, like the sales industry growing up, he could relate to that more.
Yeah. What would you say motivates you? You're saying like you just have this confidence about you. Like you have to believe in yourself and what you're doing. For somebody that, let's say, doesn't believe in themselves, what advice? Because for me, like I feel like it's not that hard to believe in myself. Like I didn't have to learn how to do it. I have other weaknesses that I've had to learn how to do, but that I can't really give somebody feedback on that because I'm not really sure how how somebody would gain confidence in themselves. For you, you said you were shy growing up and then you had to learn it. What advice would you give to somebody that doesn't have confidence in themselves to gain confidence?
No, good question. My dad told me growing up when he dropped us off to school, like in elementary school, from when I was kindergarten growing up, he said it's all about confidence. There are five things he told us. The first thing was it's all about confidence. So I'll say the five things. It's all about confidence. Pick what you want to do and go do it. Believe in yourself. Um, love your mom and dad. There's one other. I always forget the other one. But he always told us those things growing up, and I never really clicked to me. But I really understood like so much life is about confidence and believing in yourself. The way you gain confidence, I never understood this till like the mission and doing summer sales. You gain confidence in yourself by making and keeping commitments to yourself. If you tell yourself and write down, I'm going to do this, I'm going to do 100 push-ups, I'm going to go to the gym this many times this week, I'm going to read this book by this day. If you make any little goals like that and do it, check it off, your self-image increases and you start to believe in yourself more and more and more. And I became more confident as I've set so many little things like that to do. And I'm just continuing to do them every day, just check them off. And it's just a compounding effect from there.
That's making and keeping commitments to yourself. That's really cool. I think I don't know if that's what everybody wants to hear, but that's definitely the truth. Making and keeping commitments. Um,
There's magic pill to it. Nobody can really help you with it. You have to do it yourself.
yeah, you have to do it yourself. That's really cool. So then your second year, now you're sitting on cloud nine. You're like, I told you so. It's nice. I've heard this before. Maybe they weren't your haters, but it's nice having haters, um, because it can give you motivation, right? And so when people don't believe in you, I've had that myself. I played basketball growing up, and I was in a basketball game. We were going into a basketball game, and me and my friend, I think this was ninth grade. Me and my friend were the only two really like good basketball players on our team, right? We had two people. I was a small guy, he was a big guy. And then we were going up against the team, number one team in the league by far, heads and shoulders. They had like their team they were trees, they were so tall, they were massive and they were really good too. And same story. Everybody was like, "Oh, you guys are gonna lose. How many points are you guys gonna lose by?" Um, and I remember like it was like 2 days before I was playing, practicing, and I jammed my right finger, really bad, and that was my shooting hand. And like if you ever play basketball, like you need your finger in
Oh
order
yeah.
to shoot, right? Well, my own mother was like, "Oh, she's like, I'm so proud of you that you believe that you're gonna win, but you gotta just realize you're not gonna win this game." And my mom believed in me the most, and so when she said that, I was like, I was like, no, something clicked in my head that was like, you know what, I'm gonna stop just because before I felt like it was just going off of her confidence in me, and then it was like when she didn't believe in me, I had to have that for myself. I had to be independent of her. Something clicked. Well, we went out and we beat those guys, and it was like the coolest moment. But it sounds very similar. You went out and instead of making $10,000 your first year, you went out and made $100,000. How did you feel after that second year?
Dude, it felt great. I was like, dude, I wanted to learn the skill. I figured it out.
Yeah.
I felt like I could accomplish almost anything I put my mind to after that. Well, and one thing, so that summer was big to leading me where I'm at now. I rode out with Andrew Osler the whole summer. He was a guy that did 1,000 counts. and he told me about this guy's advantage marketing doing his branches, where instead of selling and making a commission, you would build up this branch and then pull dividends from the branch in the future.
Yeah.
Because I could take 3, 4, 5 years to build this branch up, but once you're there, you're pulling $300,000 to $400,000 a year out without having to knock, just like maintaining that. And ever since then, I was like, holy cow, that seems so interesting to me. And I've pretty much over the next 2 years, I planned out in my head how I was going to do it, where I was going to open up, how I would want to run different things in the branch. That was always on my mind. So then I did one more summer. I came back. I did 450 accounts, made a good chunk more than the previous summer. And I was like, okay, I'm ready. I want to open up a branch. We looked at Detroit, Grand Rapids, Michigan, Louisville, Charlotte, St. Louis, Pittsburgh, looked at all these different places. And then we were in a meeting with Mark Pitter at the end of the summer, Advantage. He was like, you could start in Grand Rapids, open a satellite in Detroit, something like that. Then after that, Andrew said, you could just open up in Toledo. Then if you want to go big, go to Detroit. And right then it clicked. I decided in about 30 seconds I was going to Toledo, then never looked back since then. And now we're here, been here almost a year.
That's so cool. So this
Opening it
is
up.
your third year, right?
So I've done 4 summers. So it was the
Okay.
first active summer. The second summer, I went to Cincinnati. The third summer was in Cincinnati, and the fourth summer is in Toledo.
Okay. How did you do your third summer? That was just alone, right?
So the third summer I was back in Cincinnati. There was a team there and everything. I did 450 accounts.
Okay. Wow. Okay. And now you're doing your fourth summer and you have the team. Well, no, you didn't you just finish the summer?
Yeah, the fourth summer was 2022.
Okay. And how was it going to? Well, I had one question before we go into the having the team, and that's just a whole nother ball game. One question before we get into that with Aptive, I specifically heard Aptive over and over that they target the newbies, they target the people that don't have that much knowledge. How did they get you, and how can we prevent other people not just from joining up with specifically Aptive or whatever, but more like how do you not get screwed over? Or how do you not get taken advantage of? What did they do that lured you in?
Here's one thing I've learned: the flashier the company, the less you should trust them. Active was the flashiest, this and that, and whatever. It was a distant cousin there. I met him. Actually, it was a distant cousin's husband. I had met one time at a family reunion when I was in like middle school, and I remember meeting him. He did a couple of things just like remember us and build confidence in himself with us. So he reached out to me. I believed everything he told me. I already had him like up here in my mind, and I was like, no matter other people were like trashing after or whatever, I was like, look, it's gonna be good. He's gonna take care of me. It's gonna be good. It did not go at all like he said it was gonna go, anything like that. But yeah, I really realized I should have questioned. I never questioned at all, and I just believed everything. In the summer sales industry, there is so much talk. This company does this, we do this, and that, whatever. But there's so little of actually showing that you did and going out there and proving it. And that's one thing that I realized. You got to go with somebody that's proven and that's 100% committed and not half in.
No, that's really good.
I would, yeah.
Okay. Watch out for the flashy
So it was
cuss.
definitely
Oh, sorry.
yeah.
What were you gonna say?
And you got to verify. When people just talk so much, you got to actually verify that, or ask somebody that's worked with them before, or ask somebody that specifically didn't work out or left a company, something like that. Those insights can be pretty great. never just trust. I learned never trust everything somebody's telling you.
Yeah, for sure. Watch out for the flashy companies, flashy salesmen. One of my friends says I don't trust any fast talkers because they're usually lying to me. Um,
Yep.
then getting into your fourth year, tell me how your fourth year went with having a team under you. How did that go?
Yeah, so I didn't. I was by myself this year
Okay.
because commissions are really expensive. What a lot of summer sales companies do, it's happened Green X and Hawk specifically a couple years ago. They paid people way too much and they didn't have the money to pay them. So they got completely screwed out of their commissions. That happens, especially like these big startups that all of a sudden are super flashy and talk like they have everything. That's a pretty big red flag. Um, so yeah, that's why I sold myself this year. We moved out in March. I had to get, I have some partners who do a lot of the operations. I had to get my commercial applicator license there for the state of Ohio, and I had never really studied much about that. I had put in about 25 hours studying the manuals, everything before that. I took the test when I moved
Oh,
out here. There
yeah.
was a core section that I passed. The general test was the one I had to pass as well. It's 150 questions. You have to get 70%, which is 105. I got my results the following week, and I got 105. So I passed it on the dot. If I wouldn't have done that, I would have had to wait a couple more weeks to retake it again and pass it, and it would have, yeah, it would have not been good.
That's insane. I was waiting for you to say 104. I'm so glad it was 105.
No, I was praying so hard. My mom texted me while I driving over there. I'm praying for you. You can do it. And then, so we hired. I could not do this without the partners I have. They're so knowledgeable in what they do and going through these experiences. It's helped tremendously. Anyways, we hire our first guy. Our vans took a while to get here, so I rented a truck from Enterprise. It was a big Ram truck, just threw everything in there. The first guy was good. We worked about 10 days. And then I wake up one morning to a text. It says he had missed the previous 2 days from he'd hurt his neck. He said, my neck's not getting better. This isn't going to work out. Best of luck. The truck's in front of your house. So I jump out of bed. I look out the window. The truck's right there. But we already had rescheduled appointments from the previous couple of days. And I was like, I can't reschedule this again. I have to go tech. So I just threw on a bunch of clothes, the tech clothes. I ran and jumped in the truck. Meg got some stuff for me to eat, and I went and tech these jobs. I teched 5 jobs that day. It ended up snowing that day, and then the end of the day was just like freezing cold and raining, like higher 30s, windy and raining. And so I teched the 5 jobs, and then I went and sold the rest of the day and got 5 sales. And so that was just a crazy day, but it was a confidence builder because I was like, wow, I did the teching and the selling, and it was 5 sales is a great day, and I did them both at the same time with my tech quitting, so it was pretty good feeling there. The next day I had 7 stops, then I got 3 sales, and then we hired another guy at the end of that week. He quit the next morning, so I had to again go. This time I had to go to his house, pick up the truck, then come back home, get ready, run the routes, and then come back home. And that was crazy. Then we hired a new guy who worked for Terminex previously in Pittsburgh. And I'm not racist or anything, but he was from a certain culture that the gypsy culture, I didn't know. I thought he was Hispanic before. I was like, hey, he's going to be a good guy, experienced, trust and everything. Um, he worked for us for 2 months. He wrecked the van twice. It's still usable. He used the gas card for $500 of personal, like random stuff, filling up his own cars, going out to eat at fancy restaurants, buying all this different stuff. And then he screwed up a couple servicing homes and he lied in front of a customer when I was there. So I fired him on the spot one day. I went and picked up his van, brought it back home, and yeah, I was like, holy crap. It was just like a nightmare. Every day there was some piece of drama going on. So I was like stressed selling. Selling is hard enough. I had to deal with this this guy something every single day. I forgot the backpack. I forgot this. I'm gonna be late. I have to go home early. It's something that and it was crazy. Firing him was like the biggest relief. We luckily ended up hiring somebody. The day I fired him, I came home and did an interview, and he was then hired the next week, and he's still with us. He's been with us 6.5 months now, and he's been good. So that was a big learning experience and it's a big piece of the summer for sure.
What did
Went through a lot, learned a lot, dealt with a lot.
what qualities did you find in the third guy? So going into the third hire, you just had two other hires. One quit, the other one you had to fire. What qualities were you looking for, and now you look for in an employee?
Well, so it was the first two quit, then the third was fired. So I had thought I was like,
That's
okay,
funny.
experience servicing homes, working for a different pest control company. I thought that was the most important thing. Now the number one thing is trust. If you can trust the person, if they're honest with you, I don't care if they haven't had any experience. There's other things you can work through. If you can trust them, it's way better than having somebody you can't trust that's experienced. That's my number one thing. We're about to hire a second tech this next month or two, and number one thing is I have to be able to trust you. Because if you're not honest with me, you're not going to be honest with the customers, and you're representing a company that can screw us up and really damage us.
For sure, for sure.
Can't emphasize that enough.
Well, congrats for hiring your second tech. That's gonna be that's it's your second tech, right?
Yeah. So the one's still with us, and then I'll be hiring the second one because we're at about just about 500 customers.
Okay.
This summer we're going to be growing to as close as we can to 1,500 customers. So
That's awesome. Congrats. So going into next summer, are you planning on having salesmen underneath you? Well, what are you planning on doing there?
yeah, so planning on hiring a couple. There's some ads we're running right now at some of the college campuses and some Indeed ads we just started. So I've kind of tapped out my personal network. A lot of people just real jobs, go get a master's, different stuff like that. So hopefully, I plan on hiring some people as more than just the summer. Start earlier and go like 5, 6 months. If they're like that, they can be a little bit less talented, but just having more time out there, they should be able to do 200, 300 accounts, something like that. So working on putting those together right now. Have some more interviews today. Done quite a few, but finding good people is something that's hard to find. But it's definitely worth just vetting people, going through a lot of that don't have much potential to find those that do have a lot of potential.
For sure, for sure. That's yeah, that's going to be the next step. I've heard that recruiting is a very specifically for summer sales is very tricky.
Yeah, no, it's hard because different. The the new guy is always the cooler guy. Some guy did something last summer that nobody else, he claims nobody else has done. He gets a big truck and he's the talk. Oh, everybody wants to sell with him. The next summer, it's somebody else. It always goes back and forth like that.
Yeah, yeah. What are your plans going forward? So next summer you plan on getting how many salesmen?
It's less the sales than more the accounts, like four or
Okay,
five. I need to do about 300 to 400 recruits that do between 300 and 400 accounts.
okay. So maybe like you said, three to six
Like
people,
yeah, three or four solid people
3 or 4
should do
solid
it.
people.
Going off a 10x rule, you should plan on them doing way more accounts than that. Have it lined up to do 600 or 700 accounts, and we'll be totally fine for 300 or 400.
For sure, for sure. What are your plans for the future? What so this is this next summer. What do you plan on doing the next couple of years?
So, no, good question. My goal is within 5 years have like a dream house, so have everything we want, and just have a good life, spending time doing things that we want to do. I try not to get too far ahead of myself. I have like things in the future that I want to work towards. Right now, I'm just focused on this year, maxing out two routes with two techs, having those full, and then focusing on the next year, and then seeing from there. Focus this year, the next year. The goal is to have it between 3,000 and 3,500 accounts and maintain it around there. And move back to Utah, maybe stay out here. Kind of see what's next. Just
Okay.
focus on this year.
Okay.
Have those things in the back of my head for the future.
For sure. What it sounds like would you say you hit most of the goals that you set?
So the
And not just with sales, but also personal goals.
So I've set a lot of different goals, like the sales training stuff going through there. This is one thing I found interesting. A lot of like influencers and people say set goals that scare you, that are way too big. Now I totally disagree with that because the last 2 summers, after doing 350, I was like, okay, if I can improve again, I'll be at like 600 accounts. That was my goal. My third summer, I did 450 accounts, but I felt like a total failure every single day. I did so good, made a lot of money, but I set such a big goal and I judged myself compared to that big goal. And I remember in July, I was like, this summer has been a failure. Like, what am I doing? When in reality, we made great money. It put us in a spot to open up a branch and do stuff we wanted to do. But I was so focused on something that I still wasn't there yet, and it was terrible. This summer again, I was like, okay, I'm gonna do 600 accounts. I ended up doing just over 500, but every day, every week, when it's Wednesday, I could have had 5 Wednesday. I'm at 12, but I should be at 15 in the week. I was like, oh my gosh, I was like stressing like crazy. So that's something I have mixed feelings on now. You should have visions and like in the back of your head, I want to become this one day, but have a goal that's it has to be somewhat realistic, but that stretches you at the same time.
Okay. Realistic but stretch. It stretches you.
I mean, you have to have an honest evaluation of where I'm at, what I'm actually capable of doing. I mean, you could have some first year that says, "Oh, I want to make 200,000 my first summer." Could you? Yeah. Will you? Not very likely. You got to look at. You just got to be honest with yourself. Say, where am I actually at, and what do I need? What's required to get to the level I want to get to?
Do you think it's better setting a lower goal and then crushing that goal like you did with the books and the other small goals that you had going out to your second summer? Do you think it's better setting smaller goals and then let's say you reach it in half the time, and then you're like, okay, I'm going to double this goal because I reached it in half the time, or I reached it in whatever 70% of the time. Do you think that's a better way of setting goals for yourself?
This is like a debate I've had the last couple of years myself. I think it is because when you say you want to do something, you do it. It builds so much confidence, and then just set the next target after that. Set a goal that you know you can accomplish, then hit that as fast as you can, and then set another target and continue to work to that target. I think that's a better way than just going out every summer hoping that I'm going to hit this huge number that really isn't very realistic.
Yeah, yeah, I think that makes a lot of sense. Um, so so you said 5 years. You want to have your dream house. I think that's an awesome goal. It's kind of one of those. You sound like you have your goals, kind of taken. Like you have a big goal, and then you have smaller goals in order to get to that big goal, right? And it sounds like it's worked really well for you. Um, so what do you plan on doing with the company when you grow it up in 5 years or in 10 years? Are you looking at selling it? Are you looking at keeping it and doing like an hour a week? Do you want to stay in Toledo, Detroit area? What do you want to do next 5, 10 years?
Yeah, no, great question. So I'd read the book Profit First. At first, I was like, okay, I want a revenue of $10 million. And I'm like, okay, Profit First talks about it doesn't matter how much your revenue matters how much you profit. I was like, okay, I don't care how much your revenue. I want to make $1 million a year for my business, and so that's the goal. Maybe I have to grow it a little bigger or something at 5 years to actually hit that. But that's my goal. That's what I'm working towards. After that, I plan on maintaining it, is having a good on the ground manager, do a lot of ads and call in customers. Hopefully, make up for most of the attrition, but probably have a couple of summer sales guys here every year, and just maintain it after that. If I do it right, I'd be working like 10 hours a week, just maintaining it and racking pretty big dividends at that point.
At any point, would you want to sell it, or is this something that you think you're gonna want to
I
keep
would sell
right
it
onto?
if I could get a really good multiple for it, and I had a good plan of what to do next.
Yeah, because you wouldn't want to. You wouldn't want to just sell it, and now you lose the cash flow.
Yep. I just want to keep the cash flow coming in forever, reinvesting that into things that will keep on getting more and more and more.
For sure. What do you guys do about inflation? Do you guys usually raise your prices like January 1st of every year you raise it a certain amount, or what do you do there?
Insight has never raised their rates. I don't really plan on it. I price people where I think it should be fine. Things are getting more expensive, gas prices, everything, but it doesn't like kill it by any means. There's still enough margin in there. So plan on just we do it monthly. Most people pay $49 a month. Just keeping it at that's high enough to where there's still enough margin if things get a little more expensive. If inflation got way out of hand, we'd probably increase it to $59 a month to higher the average. But we don't plan on raising the prices. I think there's a lot to say for that. It builds trust. If you raise rates in the wrong way, it decreases trust, and you want to do everything you can to increase trust with your customers. That's one book, Speed of Trust. That's a really really good book.
I haven't heard of that one. Speed of Trust. The reason I ask is I was listening to an interview. It was this what was his name? It was the Miami like cocaine dealer of Miami or something like that. And he was back in the 70s, and he like changed his ways and stuff later on in life, but he was talking about late 70s, and they were doing I think it was like 10 million a month. And he's like 10 million a month in today's money is probably like $500 million.
Insane.
So it's like 50 times more. It was basically 50 times more than what it would be today. Does that make sense? So in like 50 years. So I mean, I guess I just think if you're thinking about I'm thinking long term. If you want to keep it at $1 million a year cash flow, that also determines on how much you can buy with that, right?
Yeah.
And so if everything costs twice as much, now your 1 million is really worth 500,000 in today's money.
Yeah.
So I guess that's what I was just thinking about. Maybe it's something to look at, but I do agree with you as well on the trust factor.
Yeah. And if things got way out of hand, obviously you have to address that down the road. Worry about that more down the road.
Okay. And then let's see here. You talked about your grandpa, you and him talking about not only business but also investing. Do you have other plans of other things that you want to invest in?
Yeah, I'd like to. I always thought I want to get into like residential real estate, get a duplex, fourplex. That doesn't really interest me now. I have one of my business partners. He's a financial planner. He has this software that buys and sells like little limit orders on a index fund. So it's meant to take advantage of little upticks. I'm pretty much dumping a lot into there now. I'm going to see how that goes for a couple of years. They say like 10 to 15% a year. So I'll see how that goes for a couple of years. I would like in the future, the 4 or 5 year mark from now, get into big real estates like apartment complexes, um, commercial strip malls,
Yeah.
something like that. That's the kind of stuff I like to get into.
Okay. That's I like the way you think. I like the bigger deals as well, rather than just the single family homes or duplexes. Is a lot
Yeah,
bigger. Well, I really appreciate you sitting down with me. My last question, because you talked about books and you also talked about podcasts. What would you say are like your top books that you personally like, and then also podcasts?
yep. Real Business Owners is a really good podcast. There are some St. George guys. Number one thing I'm taking away is delayed gratification. There's so many guys that go out in summer sales, make a lot of money. As soon as they make their first 50, 100K, they buy a Tesla, they go on a bunch of cool trips, all that kind of stuff. That's good and all, but at least if you delay, the more you delay it, the more you'll be able to get in the future. So that's something I've thought about. I want nice things, but I want to delay it to where it's like not a big deal to buy them instead of being a big deal to buy them. That's a good podcast. Ed Milet is really good. Books 177 mental toughness secrets of the world class. One of my favorite books I've read. It compares the middle class to the world class and how they think, what they do, everything, and it's completely opened my eyes. The negative side of that is now I see when like friends or family different people talk, I label them as middle class. Now that's not good to it, but I'm like, no, you're thinking that's not hard. You're thinking too small or you're soft. That's it. Figure it out. Like that's kind of my first thoughts now.
Then the next book is How to Not Be Judgmental.
Yeah.
I've been there myself, with many different things. One of them being like religion, where I'm like, oh man, this person's not being as moral as I am, and start comparing myself with other people. So
Yeah.
that's tricky.
That 100%. Grant Cardone is a fun person to listen to. Like a lot of his books. Um, John C. Maxwell. He's fascinating. One of my favorite quotes from him. I've listened to 2 of his books. He says, "Everything rises and falls on leadership." And if you think about it, it's true. Thinking about the summer that everything went terrible, everything fell to the level of leadership that we had. There was terrible leadership. If you think about good football teams, I'm listening to the leadership secrets of Nick Saban right now. It's amazing. He has a standard that he leads to. And it's amazing to see what they've been able to accomplish and do. That's one of
Yeah.
those learning about leadership is one of those eye-opening things. You look at different organizations, even like wars. I mean, you look at any clubs, teams, anything, sales teams, businesses, everything falls or rises with the leadership in that organization. And that's one of the number one things. That's something I've realized I'm not very good at, and that's a skill that I want to develop to become a good leader so I can run everything the way I want to run everything.
Yeah, that's really cool. A lot of these I haven't. I'm very familiar with Grant Cardone, but I want to read Speed to Trust, 177 Mental Toughness Secrets of the World Class,
Yeah.
right? And then Leadership Secrets of Nick Saban. John C. Maxwell, I started listening to him, and it was so dry. It was so, yeah, maybe like I got the wrong book or something, but it was just like step number 1, do this. Step number 2, I really like the stories. What's your experience? Why do you like John C. Maxwell?
So one story he told in one of his books I read, he was a pastor of a church. He was hired at a new church that had around, I think, like 1,000 people, which is massive. Um, but they wanted to grow to 3,000 people. And so he looked at the organization and said, he realized we're not growing because we don't have good enough leaders in all little departments, how the church is set up. So we had some hard conversations, had some people step down and move, and brought in good leaders. And by bringing in good leaders, they were able to attract more people and grew to 3,000 people.
Hmm.
So that's
I'll have to
that's
give him another shot because I know a lot of people
yeah,
really like him. So I'll have to give him
yeah.
another shot.
He's got some good stuff.
Well,
But yeah,
I really appreciated sitting down with you, learning a lot about your your story of growing up. This kid that was always into entrepreneurial from dog biscuits. Like who's ever thought of doing something like that to breeding dogs, video cassette or VHS, and now you're going on into bigger things. That's a really cool story of your first year to your second year, literally 10xing, and now this year going on to start having your own team. I mean, you did that last year as well, but now having your own sales guys. I'm really excited. Maybe we need a part two after your next summer and find out how this upcoming summer went.
well, thanks, man. There's one more thing I want to say, if that's okay with you.
Please.
In life, everybody talks about their why. You look on social media or different presentations, it's almost like become too cheesy. Everybody says their why is my family, and it motivates me to work so hard. I can't tell you how many times I've seen that or heard that. It's over and over and over. But why is your why your family? Dean Graziosi has a principle I heard on a podcast where when you say you want to do something, ask yourself why 7 times to get to the actual like emotion or feeling you're actually looking at and getting there. During this last summer, I had some really, really hard lows. And a lot of times, like thinking to myself, and I'm obviously a religious person. I was almost like kind of mad at God. I'm like, God, why are you not helping me more? I have done everything right. Not perfect, but like certain mission, married, family, everything. I'm temple worthy. I'm doing everything right. Why are you not blessing me more? What I've realized, life isn't about playing it safe, taking the easy path. Life is about experiencing and becoming. And the difficulties that we go through as entrepreneurs in business, whatever you do in life, we're supposed to have those experiences. We're supposed to experience and overcome these things to fulfill our eternal potential. As like Matthew 5:48, be ye perfect as me and my Father in heaven are perfect. Our eternal potential is to become like God. Everything we go through, every day, the experiences that I go through, and we all go through, they're all steps on that path to eventually become like our Father in heaven. That's what I realized this last summer, and my perspective has totally changed now from these hardships, headaches I go through every day. Look, I'm like, instead of, oh my gosh, like, why this, why that, why me? I'm like, no, there's a purpose behind this. I'm supposed to be experiencing through that. And another part of that, my why, I mean, my family is my why and everything, but why? I want to have freedom to spend time experiencing becoming my life, having the experiences that I want to have with my family, and not, I want to be wealthy. I don't want to be wealthy to give my kids a bunch of stuff. I'm not going to give my kids anything, but I want to learn the experiences that I think they need to experience for themselves in their life so that they can become the people that they're meant to become. There's one other quote I heard. It said, an expert is someone who's made every mistake possible in that certain field. And I think about that now as I make mistakes to different things. I'm on my path, my eternal progression path. This is supposed to happen. This is just part of it. And having a perspective has helped me so much, and it's completely changed how I view day-to-day tasks and annoyances.
Mm-hmm. Man, that's super powerful. I think it goes back to why I think how you're so good at setting goals. I mean, that's your overarching goal. You have to know why you're doing You have to know why you're doing. What's your mission? I know for my family, we have our mission and our three values, and then what are our goals? And every single week we read through them. Like, okay, what are our mission? What's our mission? What are our values? What are our goals? Um, and and I think it makes like the overall picture. You get an idea of where you're going. You have your roadmap, and without those goals, without your why, you don't have the roadmap, right?
100%.
Man, this was awesome sitting down with you, Dallin. Though, thank you for leaving us off on that great note. And I'm sure everyone that's gonna watch this is gonna get a lot out of this interview. So thank you.
Thanks, man. Thanks for having me on here, Addison. Pleasure to be here.